Greetings and God bless you. Happy Tuesday, everyone. This is Antoinette again coming before you this afternoon with um, a word that's been on my heart, coming from a video that I watched yesterday. And I think as I began to meditate and reflect on that message was more or less about covering. And one of those things that I believe has been a great drawback for me in ministry is the fact that I don't have a covering or I have not named anyone as a covering. And so when you don't have a covering, you don't tend to get the respect or the honor, that you probably desire or hope to get because you don't have a covering. And so no one can speak for you, no one can vouch for you. And so it's the price we sometimes have to pay. Now, a lot of people have made speculation as to why I don't have a cover. I think the number one on the list is church hurt. That's not the case why I don't have a cover. But people are entitled to their opinion. And so I don't have any church hurt whatsoever. I think the day that I began to pity the church and pity leadership was the day I began to heal from church hurt. When I began to realize uh, just taking a scope of the individual and looking at them and realize that these are people that are flawed, that are full of flaws themselves, but will never look at themselves. When I realize people are struggling with their own demons and their own insecurity as to why they would attack me or say certain things for me, I became my pain uh, transferred into pity, disappointment, and pity for these leaders. And so, one of the things that God has made me to be is to be an intercessor for leaders. The number three thing as to why I don't have a covering is the accusation that I have an orphan spirit. Mm. I don't have an orphan spirit, that is birthed out of rejection because I've been rejected. I'm going to do a teaching on rejection, and not many people are able to process rejection properly. But I've been able to process rejection properly and look at rejection basically for what it is. You see, there's an upside to rejection and there's a downside to rejection. The spirit of rejection is to attack you so you can attack yourself, and in turn produces an orphan spirit. So what happened is the spirit of rejection comes to lower your self-esteem, your self-worth, your self-value, to let you get caught up in self-hatred, self-loathing, and even self-rejection, right? And then out of that rejection, now you begin to operate as an orphan because of the spirit of rejection. And so, if you're not able to process rejection properly in understanding that there's an upside to rejection, um, in life skills, when you're dealing with rejection, there's certain things you want to take into consideration. Number one, people have the right to reject you. It's okay. It's okay. It's no reflection on you whatsoever. If someone rejects you, they have a right to do that. I'm sure in your lifetime you have rejected others or probably will reject others at some time. So if someone rejects you, it's okay. It's their thoughts, it's their opinion, it's their feeling. They have a right to it. It may be valid, it may not be valid, but understand it's okay to be rejected. Um, there are people where you are accepted. Focus on those people that are accepting you. Number two, never internalize rejection. When you internalize rejection, that's when you're going to allow it to work on your self-esteem and your self-worth and your self-value. Because you're wondering why are they rejecting me? Right? And now you're making yourself small, and now you're taking on an issue that's now added and compounded as to why they're rejecting you. And now you're internalizing that and you're becoming toxic. So never internalize rejection. Sometimes you're being rejected not because of anything that's wrong with you, but because of everything that's right with you. hmm Yeah, people will reject you not because of anything that is wrong with you, but everything that is right with you. You see, Daniel was at the top of his game, but he was being rejected. The Bible said he has an excellent spirit in him, right? But he was being rejected by his peers, by the counselors and the governors and the princes and the other president. He was being rejected by them, not because of anything bad Daniel did, but because he distinguished himself and he stood out. And so he was rejected by his peers, right? So that's another reason why people will reject you, not because you did anything wrong, but because of what you're doing right. Other people will reject you because of flying monkeys. They're flying monkeys. You don't know them. They reject you for no reason, valid reason, except they're hanging with someone who's rejecting you. This is why you can't internalize rejection and you cannot take it personal. People have a right to reject you for whatever reason. So sometimes you'll have a whole community rejecting you, not because you did anything to them, but because someone that controls that community have them rejecting you. They have no valid reason. They're rejecting you for no reason except they're aligned with a toxic individual that has targeted you, and so now they are victims of that individual. They're being played, and they're victims of that individual, right? And so you may end up again being rejected. It's important to have rejection in its proper perspective. If what they say is valid, then now this is the upside of it. You become introspective. If what they say is true, now I need to reflect on that and possibly make some changes, right? If this is something that is causing the community to reject me. So again, that is still the upside of it. You don't internalize it, but you come introspective of it and you begin to make some self-assessment of it as to why the community or an individual is rejecting you. So that's an opportunity to scale up, upgrade, level up, make some changes, right? So again, that is the upside of rejection. Yes, so rejection can be purposeful. Rejection sometimes come to break you. And you see people reject you sometimes because they want to break you. You see, the world's view of breaking is to damage you. God's way of breaking you is to mold you and rebuild you. Remember that story in Jeremiah 18 about being on the wheel? The clay was in the potter's hand on the wheel, and that the clay became marred. But guess what? It was still in the potter's hand. God's breaking is about his molding and shaping us. Again, that's the upside of rejection. Rejection comes to damage you. Rejection from the community comes to break you, to make you broken. And so the world standards of making you broken is in the hopes of damaging you. But on the flip side of that, allow God to use it to what? Mold you and shape you because you're still in the hand of the potter. hmm it brings pain to our heart when we're rejected. No one likes to be rejected, but in your pain, find the purpose. In the pain of what you have to go through, let that mess that you're going through become a message. Let it become the message of how you overcame and how you conquer and how you grow through it, how you went through it. You go through it and you grew through it, right? So it's about your perspective. How are you going to process rejection? And so when you know how to process rejection, it won't take a toll. It won't take a toll on you. Rejection also come to isolate you and alienate you. Again, on the upside of that, use it to your advantage. Maximize it. In isolation, spend more time with God. In that isolation, let me tell you, some of some of your biggest thing that you ever birthed came out of rejection. You were so rejected, you became isolated, and you maximized the moment and you just lock in with God. And you saw growth spurts, right? You begin to level up. So it's about your perspective. Learn to maximize everything the enemy throws at you. You see, my enemies cannot understand why is it they have put me through so much. I'm still smiling. I'm still happy. I'm still joyful. I don't look like the hell they are dragging me through for years and years and years and years. The humiliation ritual, the smear campaign, the public shame, the labels, the name calling, the slanderous and demoralizing accusation, because I've learned how to process it. I feel bad for some of these people because they're stuck in a stage in their lives that they should not be. Instead of utilizing their lives to be productive, instead of utilizing their lives to make a difference in the life of another, they choose to be toxic. They choose to be evil. They choose to become corrupt and more corrupt and debase. That's their choice. They're becoming more and more evil, more and more dark and debase. So I'm not even concerned about what they're doing and what they're saying about me. I look at them and I see the devil dragging them slowly in a very dark place that they cannot even see. They're blinded to their own condition. And the fact of the matter is, they think they're winning because for them it's all about winning. So you have to put it all in perspective. Some of these people, they need help. They need psychiatric help. For you to be stuck in a place targeting one person for 12 years, something is wrong. Something is wrong. There's an evil seed. There's a demonic seed. There's a satanic seed in that person. Nobody does that. Something is very wrong. So you have to process that. And you have to have the proper perspective on the type or the kind of rejection that you're dealing with. Now let's get back to covering. I don't have a covering. I'm not opposed to covering, but I'm more for being in covenant with a person. Because I think my experience with covering is my experience with covering. It may not be yours, but my choice for not having a covering has nothing to do with church hurt. which is what I'm going to talk about here. Nothing to do with church hurt. Some of you think, oh, she doesn't have a covering and she got an orphan spirit, and that's why it has nothing to do with any of those things. So let me talk about why I don't have a covering, I should say, at this time. Number one, let me talk about this story. Mozart, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Amadeus means beloved of God. He was a genius. He was a protege of Antonio Salieri. Now, Antonio Salieri, he trained many of the opera writers of his time. Some of the most well-known opera that came out of Vienna, came out of Europe during that time, was trained under their mentor and teacher, Antonio Salieri. But there was this quirky, nerdy guy named Wolfgang Amadeus. Incidentally, he died at the age of 32. Amadeus wrote his first opera at age 5. By age 12, and he was also under Antonio Salieri. By age 12, he wrote his full-scale opera for the King's Court, and it was only one draft. He didn't have to write a second and third draft to finalize it. So at the age of 12, he wrote his first full-scale opera. And now Antonio Salieri was the head of the King's Court, and all these musicians and opera writers were under him. And so Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, of course, was under this teacher, this tutor, this mentor called Antonio Salieri. Subsequently, Mozart began to gain traction. Who was this boy? Who was this opera genius to write a full-scale opera? First draft for the King's Court. And so while he was getting big and his name was now traveling all over Europe, a lot of people was not talking so much about Antonio Salieri. And so Antonio Salieri succumbed to jealousy and envy because Mozart was now being talked about. Mozart was now, as we would say today, he was shining. Mozart now, this young man whose middle name means beloved of God, he had the spotlight. And so Antonio Salieri, who have enjoyed it for so many years in the King's Court, felt his light was now dimming. And so he became consumed with envy and jealousy. And so he commissioned Amadeus to write a requiem, a funeral requiem. And so Antonio Salieri began to labor over this very long, complicated opera requiem. What Mozart didn't know that he was writing his own funeral. Because while he was writing this opera, Antonio Salieri was bringing him lunch. And Antonio Salieri was putting arsenic in the food, slowly. He slowly poisoned Amadeus. And Amadeus labored with that funeral requiem, his last opera, until he died, a slow death, with pinches of arsenic in his food, put in there by Antonio Salieri. Died at the age of 32. Jesus was in the temple at the age of 12, astounding the lawyers and the doctors. Jesus was a protege. And so the doctors and lawyers came in, and here was this 12-year-old. They were baffled at this little boy. By the time he became an adult, moving through the towns and the city, healing all that was sick and oppressed of the devil, these same leaders in the temple came after him. Before that, they had the spotlight. Before that, they walked through the marketplace in their long flowing gowns and their hats and their phylactery on their foreheads, and the people in the market will just hail them and praise them, and they were the thing of the town. But now Jesus came on the scene doing signs, wonders, and miracles, and now they were dimming. And everybody was talking about Jesus. Everybody, the crowd was now following him. And so envy and jealousy, they were succumbed to envy and jealousy to the point of death. He sent out a monitoring spirit in the person of Judas, to monitor him and to return with information so they could have him murdered. This is how far envy and jealousy goes. The end result of envy and jealousy is death. Physical death, or death to your name, death to your character, death to your identity, death to your career, death to your finances. In any way that jealousy and envy can produce death, the only thing that can satisfy envy and jealousy is death. This is why the Bible tells us that what? Jealousy is as cruel as the grave. Jealousy is irrational. Jealousy wants you dead. Jealousy has no conscience, have no guilt, has no remorse. It is focused on one thing: your death. They can destroy your name. They will be satisfied. They will be happy. They will be joyful. Whatever they can do to bring death to you. That's how jealousy is satisfied. So when we look at leadership, in light of what I just shared, and being in the apostolic prophetic for 25 years, I think I may have been into 5 to 7 churches during that time. And I've sat under several types of leadership. So for me at this present time to go under a leader, I have to research them. I have to listen to their messages. I have to sound out who they are in conversation, right? I literally have to do a lot of research on them. I have to listen to their messages to hear their heart, see how they function, see how they flow, see what's out there on them. I don't clout chase. I don't celebrity chase. I don't go after a leader because of how they preach, or they got a mega church, or they're well known, or they're the hottest thing on the preaching circuit, and I'm trying to get clout and connection. No, for me, it's a little different. For me, it's a little different. And so I want to talk about the types of leaders that I've been under for the last 25 years. And so the leadership qualities that I am looking for, and I'm not saying there are no perfect leader. They're leaders with faults and flaws and weaknesses, right? But it's up to me to decide, what can I handle and still remain under that leader successfully. I believe the relationship between leaders and members ought to be very symbiotic, mutually symbiotic. When God plants me in the church and under a leader, it means I'm bringing something to that ministry that the leader needs. And likewise, that leader is to work in my life as God speaks to that leader concerning me. So basically, I consider myself a ministry gift. Most of the ministry that God sent me to in the last 25 years has always been about intercession. It's always been about building a team of intercessors. It's always been about training intercessors. So if he sends me into a ministry, it means he's getting ready to do something with this house, this apostle, this ministry, but there needs to be a wall of intercession built in that ministry. It needs to be safeguarded. The gates need to be guarded. And so sometimes we go into ministry and leaders think it's all about me. You need me and I don't need you. You need me, but I don't need you. And a lot of leaders don't realize that the thing that their ministry needs, the thing that they have been praying for, is in the person that God sent to them. But they missed it. They missed it. Right? So God is building the house. Unless the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it. Remember, this is God's house. He's sending you the roofer, and I'm talking in spiritual language and spiritual terms. He's sending you the person to do the roof. He's sending you the person to lay the tiles. He's sending you the electrician. He's sending you the painter. He's sending you the plumber. But you don't know it yet. Right? But you're looking at this person like, you need me, I don't need you. You need a plumber, and God sent you a first-class plumber. He sent you the best. But leader, you said, you need me, I don't need you. And so you do whatever you want to do, and you treat them anyhow you want to, and then they leave, and they go to be a blessing to someone else's house. Always wait to see, to understand, and to know. I remember a couple of years ago, I went into this house, and 2 weeks later, the apostle came to me and she said, "Who are you?" This signified to me that this was a woman that was praying when she saw me. I said, "Well, I'm looking for a place to worship." She said, "No, God sent you here, but he have not yet shared with me what the reason why he sent you." And I said, "Okay, when you know, let me know." Right? And so this was a person who was inquiring. And then a couple of weeks later, she said, "I know God sent you here because on Sundays, I'm looking to see you walk through the door. And when you walk through the door, there's a certain peace that I feel about you being here." So here she was now connecting with me in the realm of the spirit. And then she comes to me yet a few weeks later, and she says to me, "You're a prophet." She says to me, "You are a prophet." She said, "In a couple of weeks, the Lord is leading me to run a school of the prophets and after to do ordination." Lets me know God spoke to her. And so this was a leader who was praying. I came to the ministry. She saw something about me. She went and inquired of the Lord. The Lord spoke to her that I was a prophet. Incidentally, every time she passed me in the church, she would say, "Who are you?" And I would say, "Sister Ann." She said, "No, you're a prophet, and don't you forget it." She understood her assignment as a prophet, as an apostle. And so God spoke to her. She said, "I'm going to be doing School of the Prophets for I think it was 8 weeks. And then I'm going to do ordination." It never happened because there was a leadership pushback on that. And unfortunately, she succumbed to the people that was around her. Right? So I came there also as an intercessor. And God said, "I want you to build a team for me." I've just ordained her to be installed her as an apostle. She needs the edge of her ministry to be built up, because by that time God has spoken to me and said that the edges of her ministry is broken down. The prayer wall is broken down and needs to be rebuilt. I remember going to her about this, and she said to me, "That is so true." And so when the time came for me to be appointed to raise up a prayer wall, a prayer shield around the ministry, again, that was blocked and given to someone else to do it. Lo and behold, a couple weeks later, that person came to me and said, "I don't know why they give me this to do. I don't know anything about intercession." And she said, "I'm not doing this. I can't do it." And then she looked at me and she said, "You are the one God sent here and appoint to take up this ministry of intercession and to build a team here in this ministry." Again, it was hard fought. And so God moved me away from that ministry. And so here's a few type of ministry leaders that I've encountered and many of you have encountered. Has nothing to do with church hurt, but you're entitled to your opinions on this. And being a woman without a covering doesn't mean I don't have accountability. Now, the message I listened to had a lot to say about a woman not being covered and being sexually promiscuous. As if you don't have a cover, you're someone out there who's just going to be sleeping your way through the church, from the pulpit to the pew, having sex with everybody and anybody. Mm-hmm. This is the mindset of single women like myself, good looking single woman, not married. You don't have a covering. You must be sleeping around. You must be having sex with the pastor. You must be having sex with all the prophets and the men in the church. You're not have no accountability. You're probably sleeping with the men on their job and the men on the street and in your neighborhood. You'll probably be taking in everything that has two legs and wear a pants. Let me say something about that. The only thing that can keep a man or woman from fornication or adultery and walking in sexual purity is not a covering. It's that person. It's you having a made up mind that I'm going to use my body to glorify God. There's a lot of people out there with covering, and they claim they have the covering so they can be accountable. Brian Carn, Jamal Bryant before he got married, John Gray, Keon Henderson, and so many others, mostly men. They have covering, but they sleeping around. And also, their covering know that they're sleeping around, that they have a woman in every city they go to preach, and they have a covering. The only time the covering step up is when they get caught. And now the covering is stepping forward to lay hands and absolve them of their sins and put them back in the pulpit. Lovey Elias, Passion Java, Noel Jones is their covering. Nothing stopped them from sleeping around. The only person that can keep you in sexual purity is not a covering. It's the decision that you make about your life, about your walk, and about your relationship with the Lord. I can have a covering, and my covering will never know if I'm having sex with somebody. And if they do know, they probably won't even say anything because of the culture, especially if it's a pastor or a prophet that I was having sex with. They ain't gonna say nothing because there is a culture of perversion in the black church that has been normalized. Ain't nobody rebuking fornication anymore. That's the old church. That's the mothers. And the mothers were around. We have a breed now that have gone on to be with the Lord called the church mothers. They covered us and they covered us well. They walked with God. They were full of the Holy Ghost. You dare not fornicate and come to church on a Sunday. Oh, yeah, they sniff you out real good. Mm-hmm. You go fornicate Saturday night, you probably gonna miss church for the next 2 weeks because you've been repenting for the last 2 weeks, laying before God, getting yourself cleaned up before you go back to church. Because you know, mother sitting up there is gonna find you out. She's gonna say, where you been? Something ain't right. But we got a breed that have gone on to be with the Lord. And so now the floodgate of sexual perversion in the church is open. And ain't nobody doing no rebuking. So don't you dare judge me. I want to be kept. I want to be kept. And there's some men or brothers out there will tell you, she ain't gonna warm up to you. She's one of them girls that she married to Jesus. All right, let's go. So some of the types of leadership that I've been under, the Moses type leadership. Moses was a great leader. Great leader. But Moses had an anger problem. Moses was always angry with God's people. Moses could not handle the pressures of his assignment. And because of it, he was always angry with God's people. And it eventually cost him. And this kind of a leader, I can tolerate that. I could sit under this type of a leader. Um, Moses just was called by God, and Moses was just thrust into ministry. Moses had no template. Moses had no one to follow, no one to show him, but except for who he was in Egypt at the time, right? He oversees projects. He oversees building projects and all of that stuff. He was, Pharaoh's daughter's son, and so he grew up in the palace. He grew up in royalty. He grew up delegating, right? He grew up in wealth and affluence, and so God had kind of had to humble him on the backside of the desert, right? Taking care of his father-in-law, right? Flock, Jethro, flock. He was out there in the backwoods of the desert, in the hill country, where he was no longer the Pharaoh's daughter's son. He was now just a farmer and a cattle or a sheep uh, tender, taking care of sheep. And so Moses was thrust into this assignment, this great responsibility of leading, they said, about 3 million people out of Egypt. And so, he dealt with a lot of frustration, probably feeling overwhelmed, dealing with all these personalities and their rebellion and stiff-neckedness and just outright disobedience and rebellion and, just basically giving him a hard time. And so I've been under the Moses type leader, good builders, but just didn't know how to manage their frustration and took it out on the people, always blaming the people, being angry at the people, lashing out at the people. Yes, I've been under that leader, but I can bear up under this leader because I do understand the frustration of leaders. There's so many things that leaders deal with behind the scenes that we don't know and we're not aware of, and a lot of leaders have not mastered their emotions to not bring it um, to the pulpit. Then I've sat under the Herod type of leadership, like the king, as in King Herod. I guess the female counterpart would be Herodia. I'm the only king. I'm the only queen in town. hmm And no one else. In fact, I have a dear friend of mine, like myself, we're both struggling to do ministry. We both have been under several types of leaders and personalities of leaders. But one of the leaders she was under was over 10 years, and so she was an ordained evangelist there at the church, and her pastor gave her an opportunity to preach about somewhere into year two. At the church, he had to travel out. And so he appointed her to preach that Sunday. And so when she preached that Sunday, oh my God, the congregation was moved. They were stirred. They were so impacted by the word that she brought. And they wanted to hear her to preach more when he traveled out, or when he just didn't travel out. And so that was the only time that he allowed her to preach, but he was always a father to her, so she didn't really suspect that he was holding her down or blocking her or stopping her from preaching because he was such a good spiritual father. And so, the people wanted to know, why hasn't he put you up again? Why haven't you put you up to preach. We want to hear you minister. And so, she felt she said, go ask him and find out. And so she kind of shied away from that. That was her spiritual father. She honored him, and so she did not want to feel like she was being brazen, and she wanted to be submitted to him if that was his decision, not to have her preach. But she didn't feel somehow like he was slighting her. So she went to her spiritual mom, or so she thought was her spiritual mom. And she said, Mom, I want to ask you a question. And she said, what is it? And she said, people have been asking me why pastor haven't really put me on again. It's been about 8 years, that one time. And is there something wrong? And, I'm asking you because if I need to change some things, or, what is going on, I don't want to ask him because I respect my spiritual father. And so Herodia, tell her, there's one queen in this house, and the pulpit is not big enough for both of us. Ah, my God. The spirit of Erodia. She's the only queen in the house. And the pulpit was not big enough for her and her spiritual daughter. That was the problem. And so in due time, God says, I have more for you. It's time to go. Because as long as she was going to be there, she was going nowhere. She would not see her destiny realized because for the last 8 years, she was held down, she was oppressed, she was blocked from moving any further than where she is. And so now that she knew, and she was serving diligently, serving in the house all these years, just serving and giving and being loyal and being faithful and being humble. But there was someone in the leadership decided that was it for you. And so God said, okay, it's time to go. Now you know. You've been faithful. You've been submitted. Now it's time to go. So that's a type of leadership that you can find yourself under. You see, all leaders are not godly leaders. Leaders have weaknesses, they have flaws, they have faults. So a leader who always wants their name in lights and on the marquee, you're no longer a son or a daughter. Now you're a threat. That's why I don't have a leader. I'm not covered because I've been there once too many times. I've been there. I've sat there and I've served. But somebody decided, the pulpit is not big enough for you and I. And then you have your Laban type leadership. Laban. What is that like? Laban knows about the promise. Laban knows about your call, the word and the promise of God on your life. Your heart is pure towards Laban, your father Laban, your leader Laban, your Laban leader. And so you come in and you come with a mind to serve. You realize your destiny is in this place. Your destiny is tied to this place. That God set you in a family, set you in a ministry. You prayed, you fasted. You said, God, lead me to where you want me to be, to the leader, to the house. And God says, here is where I would have you to be. You're happy. You're serving with joy. You've submitted to the house. You're submitted to your leader. And so your leader sees you gifted, anointed. Everything you touch is prospering. Every area you work, there is growth. You're liked and you're loved by the people. You have leadership skills and qualities. And you're serving well. You don't miss church. You're always there on time. You're serving in your area, and your area, as long as you've been serving in that area, it keeps growing and prospering. And then you labor and you come to Laban and you said, God, is talking about elevation in the ministry, so I can begin to, step into my ministry, move forward. Is God speaking to you, Pastor? Oh no, you're not hearing from God. It's not your time yet. You're not ready yet. When God speak, I'll know. And I'll let you know. No, it's not timing. You're not hearing from God. And so you sit back and you sit down. This is after 7 years you did that. And so you said, okay, I'm going to submit to my father and what he says. And so you didn't know that your pastor is a trickster. He just wants you to build his destiny. He wants you to be the destiny pusher for his ministry, to grow it, to develop areas of the ministry. He realized that everything you touch grow and it prosper. When you sit at the leadership meeting, what you shared is moving the ministry forward. And so he just now wants you to keep you in that place of serving, always serving, but never being released. Because he's soaking up your gifts. He's using your gift to build his ministry, her ministry. He's not concerned about you. No, 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 no. He's concerned about his house, his future, his destiny, and how much you have brought to it. And so 7 years later, 14 years later, you go back to your spiritual father. It's been 14 years. I know God is calling me to be a prophet. I know God is calling me to the pastoral father. What is God saying to you? Oh no, it's not time yet. Just sit. Yeah, God is sharing some things about to me about you, but it's not that. You say, okay, so you submit again. Yeah. And he's watching you developing areas of his ministry. And then you leave one ministry because you grew that. And then you go over another para ministry. And then you begin to work in this para ministry because he appointed you because you did so well in that area. And then he had you select somebody. And because you understand leadership qualities and leadership, you're able to pick the right person to continue to maximize the growth in that area. And so he put you over in another area, and then you begin to grow that and maximize it and increase it. And this have gone on for 14 years. And like Jacob, you go back another 7 years. You work again. The Bible said he worked what? 6 years. 6 years more. That's 20 years he gave Laban. 20 years he gave Laban. And Laban tricked him. Laban deceived him. Laban used him. How do we know? Because after when he got to year 20, he went to Laban again. And he said, Laban, I've married. You see, Laban knew that he was working 7 years for Laban for Rachel. But Laban didn't tell him that after those 7 years, you have to marry my first daughter, Leah. Laban knew that. But Laban watched him work. And bring prosperity to his land and his livestock and his house and his field. And then when it was time for him to have Rachel, he said, well, according to our law, you have to marry the first daughter. Laban knew that. But Laban took advantage of him. Trickster. Took his labor. And so he worked another 7 years for Rachel. And then after he married Rachel, had a bunch of kids with Leah, had a bunch of kids with Rachel, and still gave him 6 more years. And then when it's time to say, Uncle Laban, it's time for me to go back to my mother's house, go back to my mother. I'm taking my wife and my kids and I'm going to go. You hear what Laban said? Laban was begging and pleading with him to stay. You hear what Laban said? Because I have inquired and I found out it was because of you why I have been so blessed. My land have been blessed. My household have been blessed. My livestock have been blessed. My grain and my wheat have been blessed. Jacob, because of you, I have flourished. Stay with me. I've been under that type of a Laban leadership. Always laboring, but never being released into destiny and into the promises of God and the word of God over my life. I know many of you out there, you can identify. Oh, yeah, you know. And then when you decide to leave, they call you a vagabond. When you decide to leave, they call you disobedient and rebellious. Yeah, yeah. That's the Laban leadership, the Laban type of leadership, right? And then you have the Jezebel. Oh, yeah, we've all been on the Jezebel. That controlling and manipulative leader. And her eunuchs. And her daughters, Atalia, who's even more wicked than her. We've all been under the Jezebel type leadership. We're talking about godly leaders and ungodly leaders. This is why so many people have left leadership. This is why there's a revolving door a lot of times in leadership. You see somebody appointed and they're on the platform for 6 months, and by you turn around, it's like, oh wow, where is so and so? I don't see them anymore. Somebody's over area of ministry 3 months, and you're turning around, and it's like, wait a minute, what happened to them? It's a type of leadership. So we have Jezebel and her eunuchs and her daughters, Atalia. The Jezebelic type leadership has everybody under her control. She's corrupt, she lies, she's cruel, and she's wicked. And anybody that serves as a threat, who doesn't align or line up under her, oh yeah, her eunuchs are coming after you, and her daughters are going to crush you. Jezebel rules with control and manipulation, fear and intimidation. And if you're not under her, and if you're not a yes man or a yes woman, you're not going anywhere in that ministry. No, you're not. Because Jezebel is the authority of that house. Jezebel usurp the will, the plan, the purposes, and the agenda of God in the house. For Jezebel, it's just all about her. Nobody else. This is a controlling ministry. If you're not one of her yes men and yes women, you're not going anywhere. You're going to be sidelined. You're going to be overlooked. You're going to be benched. You're going to be kicked to the curb. If you carry out her plans against her perceived enemies and threats, you will be promoted. You will sit at the right hand of Jezebel. You will be an informer. You will be a Judas to carry out her assignments. And your promotion is contingent on obeying the orders and commands of Jezebel. She has no concern for the people she's leading. She's only concerned about her control, her dominating and domineering and controlling and manipulating everybody. The well-being, the spiritual well-being is not her concern. Her concern is to be in charge, to dictate and delegate. That's it. And then you have the Ahab type leader. The Ahab type leader don't think for themselves. They do what their leadership wants. The leadership is in charge. They're not. They don't listen to God. They don't do nothing that God tells them to do. They just listen to the leadership because they want to keep them around. These leaders are easily manipulated. Easily manipulated. They believe anything and everything. God will speak to them about something, and a leader don't agree, and they submit to that leader. They submit to anything. They take a stand for nothing. They just want to keep these people around them. The Ahab leadership often is connected to a Jezebel spirit, not necessarily the pastor herself, but someone on his leadership team or her leadership team that carries the spirit of Jezebel, because the Ahab spirit needs a dominant spirit, succumbs to a dominant spirit. So sometimes you see a Ahab up there, whether it's a male or female, they're not in charge. You're just a front person. They're just a sitting duck. There's someone else in charge. Someone else calls in the shot. Someone else instructed and giving orders and command. They're just there to obey. Oh, yeah. Many of us have been under this type of Ahab leadership, and we have suffered under this type of leadership. They know what God says about you. Oh yeah, they see what God is doing on the inside of you. They're well-meaning and they have a desire to do it, but there is a Jezebel that is blocking them. There is a Jezebel that's controlling them. There is a domineering, manipulative Jezebel in the background that is saying no. And they submit and they succumb to that domineering, Jezebelic, controlling spirit. Means well. You see, when Ahab went to Naboth and wanted his field and was willing to pay very well for it as king, Naboth denied him and said, listen, this has been in my father's family since the time of Moses. When the land was divvied up, my house, my father's lineage, I cannot sell this land. King Naboth was okay with that. He wasn't happy. He was down. He was sad, but he respected Naboth not to kill him and take his land. It was a different story with Jezebel. You see, Ahab respected that. But the wicked woman behind the scenes said, I'm going to get it for you. She got two of her eunuchs, sons of Baals, sons of the devil, to lie on Naboth and to take his land. Not only to do that, but to kill him. Oh, yeah. The Jezebel. I remember many years ago, I was under a leader, and there was a Jezebel operating in the background, but oh man, he would come to the pulpit, and I'm telling you, he would come after me. I sat in that ministry for 8 years on the leadership, and I was never ordained. I was Sister Ann from the time I sit down until 8 years later when I left, I was still Sister Ann. I watched people came in the leadership after me and got ordained as ministers. I was the only one on that leadership team that was never ordained. And I suffered in that ministry. I was attacked by my spiritual father over and over, Sunday after Sunday. And when I was thrown out of the ministry, they had a secret meeting to put me out. God said to me, I don't want you to charge your spiritual father for the things you suffered. He was told to do these things. He was told not to ordain me, even though he knew. God told him, elevate her. She's been serving faithfully. She has submitted to the house. Everything she has suffered and endured, she continued to serve. She didn't leave when she wanted, when she could have. She stayed submitted, served in several areas of ministry. And so promoting other people ahead of me that came after me was a way also of publicly shaming me. Everybody was concerned, why are they not ordaining you? Again, we're talking about types of leadership and why I'm not covered. This is not about church hurt. I need to be under the right leader. I need to be under the leader that's going to hear God concerning me and my future and do what God says. This is what this is all about. Then there is a Saul type of leadership, the secret jealousy, the one who keeps throwing javelins at you, the one that sees the anointing of God upon you, the one that sees God raising you up, but they're not secure enough to handle it. And so they come after you to try to kill you. The Saul type leadership. We know what that's all about. How David was under Saul, how Saul loved him as his own son. He was in Saul's house, the musician who could calm Saul when an evil spirit came upon him. But Saul saw the anointing because now David was anointed as king of Israel. He saw how God was getting ready to raise up David. He couldn't handle it. And so he tried to kill him. He had David watched. He have others reported on David. He hunted him down to destroy him. Yes, Saul type leadership. He kept throwing javelins at David until David had to run from Saul's house for safety and find himself hiding out in caves. And then you have the Pharaoh type leadership. The Pharaoh type leader, the Pharaoh type pastor. Again, this is a stubborn pursuer who decided once you leave my ministry to go anywhere else, I'm going to track you down wherever you are and block you in every ministry you find yourself. Pharaoh. Pharaoh refused to release you. Pharaoh refused to let you go, even though he knows God said, release him, release her. Pharaoh was benefiting again from your building, from supporting him in ministry, supporting her in ministry. And so because they don't want to see you go off in your promise and begin to flourish in your destiny, they pursue you. Every ministry day you go, they make a phone call. Watch him. Watch her. They came, they tore up my ministry. They did this and they did the other. They didn't like correction. They was rebellious. Aha. They just gonna come and take from you. You better watch them. They were a troublemaker. They start all kind of gossip in the church. They were a problem. They sow seed of discord. And every ministry you go for a new beginning, Pharaoh reaches out to block you, refusing to let you go and flourish into your destiny. We've been there. These are the types of leadership that I've been under. I cannot afford to sit under another Pharaoh. Has nothing to do with church hurt. Cannot afford to sit under another Saul, another Ahab, another Jezebel, another Laban, another Herod. I cannot afford to sit under leaders who refuse to do what God says. I want to sit under a Davidic leader, a shepherd after God's heart. A man that God says, this is the apple of my eye. The reason why David was the apple of God's eye, because David honored God in everything he did. Even when his enemies came up against him, he did not retaliate. He turned his face to God. When his son tried to steal, when Absalom rose up against him, he didn't cut his son down. He turned to God. David consulted and inquired of the Lord concerning everything, concerning his kingdom. I need a Davidic leader. The most important thing to that leader is to hear God concerning me and do what God says concerning me. Regardless of what any leader has to say, regardless of what anybody brings into their ear, the most important thing is that they're going to kneel before God and said, "What thus saith the Lord?" God, what are you saying about Anne? I heard this and I heard that, but what are you saying? What do you want me to do? How do you want me to handle this? That's the covering I need. Every covering I've had in 25 years have succumbed to gossip, became a prey and a victim to gossipers, and they did whatever they wanted. They did whatever they wanted. I had to recognize them for who they are. Oh yeah, this is a Saul. This is a Ahab. This is a Jezebel. There's a Jezebel operating. Yeah. I'm dealing with a Saul right here. I'm dealing with a Herod. I'm dealing with a Herodia. So when I sit there, I begin to figure out and determine what kind of a leader I'm under. And then I will sit there for a season because there's some kind of impartation that I'm receiving, because nothing is going to go to waste. No matter where I sit, nothing is going to go to waste, because I'm going to make sure nothing goes to waste. So it has nothing to do with an orphan spirit, has nothing to do with church hurt. I need to be under the right leader. I need to know that the leader cares for my soul. I need to know the leader cares about my future, regardless of what anyone say or anyone thinks. I need to be under a leader that's hearing from God concerning me, that heard from God and is doing what God says concerning me. Yeah. I was under one of those leaders once for 2 years. They're no longer pastoring right now. But when I got to that ministry, Herod came, Pharaoh came after me. 5 years after I was no longer in that ministry, the spirit of Herod, the spirit of Pharaoh, pursued me in every ministry after I left in 2008. Every ministry they called. And these pastors listened to them. And I came up on a lot of attack and persecution. But here was a leader that Pharaoh now calls. She's rebellious. She don't listen. She don't like correction. She's this, she's that, and carrying on and giving this report about everything. They need to watch me and all kinds of stuff. And it got back to me that that leader said, listen, she just got to this ministry. I don't know her. We here as leaders and pastors, we want to get to know her for ourselves. We would appreciate if you not call back this ministry with anything. Shut it down immediately. That was the most peaceful time I had in ministry for 2 years. And when it was time for me to leave, and I shared with them that the Lord was leading me out to a prayer mission and a prayer initiative, and I told them when was my last Sunday, they said, they celebrated for me. I said, I'm glad to hear that. Come back though, so we can usher you off the way you should be. And so I came. After service, they made the announcement. They called all the pastors, lay hands on me. They prayed for me, send me off. And they say, if you need any help, reach out to us. If you need any support, reach out to us. And if you come along any bumps along the way that things didn't work out, you're welcome to come back home. Come back here. Davidic leadership. A leader after God's own heart. Godly leadership. And so this is the reason why I don't have a covering. And I also realize that my covering that I've had stifled me, oppressed me. I could not grow in the gifts, in the callings that God has on my life all these years, because I was oppressed by these types of leaders. I was boxed in by these type of leaders. I was overlooked by these type of leaders for 25 years. I was sidelined and I was benched by these type of leaders, even though I've served and I've served faithfully in these areas of ministry. I was held down by these leaders. I was unjustly persecuted by these leaders while I was there. I forgave them. I felt bad for them because I've seen the consequences that was meted out by the Lord concerning them. And I'm not going to go into what that looks like. But whatever God said to me was going to happen and what he was going to do is exactly what occurred. And a lot of time leaders don't realize God is taking stock. How are you treating the sheep? Are you beating the flock with the rod and the staff? Are you beating them bloody, bruising them with the rod and the staff that you're supposed to use as guidance and protection? Are you destroying them? Are you allowing them to be destroyed? I had a dream 4 or 5 years ago, about a former spiritual mother that I had 25 years ago. And I was in that ministry for 8 years. And I endured a lot in that ministry. And I remember I saw her in the supermarket, and she was shocked and surprised to see me because I went over to her, and I greeted her warmly and lovingly and caringly because the past was behind me. I wasn't thinking of any of that. She jumped and she pulled away, and when I left, I'm like, why did she react that way to me? But she did because it took her off guard. She thought I would have been angry and bitter and upset. She did not expect that greeting from me. And so I had a dream of her. And in the dream, she came to me and she said, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry about what happened to you in the ministry and what I allowed to happen to you in the ministry. And when I woke up from the dream, God says to me, that's her heart and how she's feeling about what happened to me and what she allowed to happen to me in the ministry. 25 years later, they're looking at me now. And the Lord is saying, my spiritual father is sorry about the things he said. My former spiritual father. He was lied to. He was tricked. He's just now seeing that. He was deceived to do and to say things to me that was very painful and very hurtful. And yes, when I left that ministry, I bled and I was traumatized behind the persecution and the suffering and all that I went through. But God healed me. God healed me. So my issue here of not being covered have nothing to do with me want to run around and have sex and not being accountable. Purity is a choice. Perversion is a choice. No covering can stop that. It's a personal choice in this culture, in this church culture, where fornication is normalized. We're not hearing no message on fleeing fornication. We're not hearing that. It's been normalized. You have people in the church right now living together and shacking up. What people think about me is really none of my business. What your thoughts about me not being covered and how my lifestyle is and how I'm conducting my life and whether who she's sleeping with or not sleeping with or whether she's a Juanita buying them no more sheets, none of my business. I remember the days when it broke me. I remember the years ago when it almost caused me to commit suicide for the shame and the humiliation that the church brought upon me with these lies and slander. I don't care how many telepathic dreams and visions you're getting. You see, prophetic is of God, telepathic is from the devil and the kingdom of darkness. You think God is showing something prophetically, but it's the devil showing you something telepathically. I don't care how he's showing you up. Show up in a dream with my face because you are ignorant to something called a masquerading spirit. You're ignorant to the spiritual warfare fact that witches can use my face in dreams. You're ignorant to that fact. You're ignorant to the fact of masquerading spirit of demon taking on my persona and my features and my look to show me in a compromising manner. You are ignorant to the thing that witches are sending telepathic messages and you think you're seeing stuff in the spirit about me. You know you're not. A witch is channeling something to you in the spirit to assassinate my identity. It's the warfare that I've lived with for 25 years. I don't care what you think about me. What matters to me is how I'm living before God. How am I living before God? How am I being accountable to God. You see, the problem is a lot of people are being accountable to man. And so they're slipping and dipping and sneaking because they're accountable to man. So they figure if I be very careful, my leader, my pastor won't know that I just sleep with prophet so and so. But when you're accountable to God, oh my God, it's a whole different ball game. And I've made myself and my life accountable to God in all things. You can't stop people and their thoughts about you. You cannot stop people about what they think about you. Um, you can't stop it. Some of these people, what they're accusing you of, they're guilty of. They're just making you a scapegoat. They're just tying your sins, their sins, around your neck to keep people's eyes off them, using you as a decoy and a distraction to the whoredom and the whorish life they live in, because they figure if they keep accusing you, people will focus more on you and not discern or see what they are doing. That's what Janetta Rhodes does. She's a first-class prostitute, a first-class whore. Which if she keeps your eyes on me and make me the scapegoat and try to put her identity swap, she's the virtuous woman. She's the professional woman. She's the victim. I'm the monster. I'm the villain. She's going to keep your eyes glued to me while she fill your air with demoralizing lies and smear campaign, making me the scapegoat to drive me out in the wilderness, having her sins tied to my life. So people, no, I don't have a covering. Will I have a covering one day? Yes. There are people I've considered to cover me, and I've waited it out. And then I realized, wow, somebody knew that I was considering them. And then someone went into their ear. Because I'm telling you, these telepathic people, witches in the church, oh yeah, they know a lot of things. They get their tarot card readings. They say, wow, she's trying to get so and so to cover her. Let me get in their ear and shut this down. And so this is what has been happening to me the last couple of years. People are getting to people that I've considered for a covering. And because these people want to keep their image free from the things that they've heard about me, they refuse to endorse me, refuse to give me a chance or an opportunity to say, I'll cover you. And being able to see me up close, to be able that when the accusation comes, to say, no, I cover this young lady. That's not the truth. So part of me not having a covering also is because I was rejected. I was recently rejected from an apostolic covering. And the minute I went on that interview, the minute the Zoom came on, I knew immediately I was going to be rejected. I could feel the resistance, the resisting. I said, somebody has been in this person's ear. I went through the interview anyway, but I knew that I was rejected before it. Within the first 2 minutes, I knew I would have been rejected. And so I got an email that I was rejected. And then the Lord showed me the person who spoke to them and was in their ear. And today they are having second thoughts of saying, wow, I think I missed it. I think I messed up. This is what leaders are doing today. They're protecting their image. We're being assassinated. And they're not saying, you know what? I don't know this person. Let me give them a chance. An apostle, you should know this, apostles. God is giving you diamonds in a rough state. Your responsibility as apostle is to chisel around that diamond until it's smoothened and is ready. Become a diamond, valuable and of great price. Apostles, you're responsible for every leader God sends you, to shape them, to mold them, to develop them, to train them, to mentor them, to help them stand in good character, and then to release them as you have prepared them. One of the most wonderful stories that blessed me was the story of Kim Clement, and I will close with this. Everybody in South Africa, they were done with him. He said he's useless, he's worthless, and he's a waste of time. I loved it because my apostle had told me that while I watched him, mentored other people, developed them and trained them, I was left there just sitting, trying to figure out what was wrong with me, why I was not being given the opportunity. And he said to me, I am a waste of time. And so, and this is because, not because he felt that, but because that's what others said to him, because they did not want to see me elevate. And so he succumbed to them. He said I was a waste of time. That cut very deep. But God said that was not his heart. It came from the people that was around him, and he submitted and succumbed to that. And so Kim Clement said, they said he was useless, worthless, and he was a waste of time. No pastor, no preacher, no apostle, nobody. They just threw him away to the wayside. And he wrote Oral Roberts a letter. He found a track or an article about Oral Roberts in South Africa. First time he heard of this man, and he wrote him and he said, please, could you help me? Came to America, and the rest is history. Apostles are not doing the work anymore. They want you to come to them as the finished product. If you're not the finished product, your faults, your flaws will be highlighted, and then you will be categorized as being useless and worthless. This has been my experience, and this is why I really haven't had proper covering. The last ministry I was in for the last 5 years, where I was thrown out of the church by a mob, I sat there, but I was not covered because my leader submitted to the things that were being said about me, and I was never covered. I was in a ministry, I was under a leader, but I was not covered by that leader. And when we talk about covering, I'm not talking about association. I'm not talking about a network. I'm not talking about being connected to some big name pastor and big name church. Covering is about protection. One who's going to protect you and your future from the elements and the people that is the enemy assigned and sent to destroy you. It's taking the responsibility as a leader to cover The Bible said, he that abideth under the shadow of the Almighty, God covers us under his wings. Protection. That's what covering is. Not to be associated with some big, oh, this person is my covering. I'm covered by this ministry. No. Some of you have been in Big D's ministry. You're not covered. How you going to be covered in Potter's house? Bishop Jakes don't know you. You're not covered. He don't know your family. If you die, your funeral probably won't be in that church. Covering is protection. Covering is being in a ministry and feeling protected. Covering is knowing that when Jezebel comes after you, your leader put a stop to it. Godly leader put their foot down and said, no, we will not have that here. That's what covering is. This person have a future. God has a plan for them. And we will not allow this. Yes, covering is about protection. And then after they protect you, develop you, train you, mentor you, and release you, the next level of covering is to endorse you. Somebody wants you for a speaking engagement. They call your pastor. They say, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I covered. Yeah, I trained. Yeah, I mentored. She's okay. Yes, her character is in order. Now they begin to endorse you for opportunities and open doors. And that spiritual parent now celebrates you. And everywhere that son or daughter go, they never fail to honor you. That's what legacy building is all about. This is how you build legacy in ministry. You cover, you protect, you train, you develop, you prepare them for the Lord and for ministry. Then you release them. And then now you endorse them. And they bring honor to you everywhere they go. They never fail to call your name. They never fail to say, I have to honor my spiritual father or spiritual mother, because without them, I would not have made it here. That's building legacy for your ministry. How many collateral damages, leaders, have you done? How many lives have you crushed and destroyed? How many have you slaughtered and persecuted? How many you have caused to leave your ministry in tears, broken, damaged and destroyed, traumatized, and is seen a psychiatrist? Leaders. This is not about church hurt. It's about finding the right leader. It's about finding godly leadership. It's about finding that Davidic leadership, that leader who's after God's heart. That's what Jeremiah 3:15 promised. I will give you leaders after my own heart. They have the heart of God concerning you and your future. God bless you and be well.